Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Editor's Room podcast. I'm the one, the only, Jackson Estwanick, Chief Executive Producer of MHS News and The Messenger. Hello.
Hello. I'm Kavya, and I'm co-editor-in-chief of The Messenger.
And here on the Editor's Room podcast, we like to talk about leadership in student activities at Marquette and hopefully translate those skills into in real life. Because hopefully we'll be real life people one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just measly high school students.
And to give you context, basically Jackson is in charge of the DMP class, which is a separate class from the print newspaper class.
Girl, they don't know what that is. We're the leaders.
There's two different classes, and that's what I'm trying to set.
We've already explained this.
But what if they haven't listened to the first one?
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, so there's basically two different classes, so we both lead different classes. So this is kind of giving you context for when we talk about the way
I lead the broadcast class,
yeah,
and Kavya leads the newspaper class.
Yes.
There's
exactly.
your context.
Thank you.
So, I was hoping that you could lead this conversation about communication today.
Oh, wow. Thank you for telling me in advance. Okay.
Did you think that was really crafty?
I didn't appreciate you putting me on the spot, but yeah, it was pretty creative.
Girl, I literally... Oh, because I told you to lead it?
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought that he was going to lead it. I have nothing in my brain
my
right
perspective
now
will lead it, but your advice will lead that part.
Oh.
It's a twofold.
Okay.
I was just trying to make a pun on leadership.
Okay, can we move forward?
You don't have to make it something that it's not.
If you have to explain your humor, it's not humorous. Okay, moving forward. So, Jackson.
So, I guess I should explain that. I'll start by explaining my leadership style, and then you can explain yours. Is that mine is not. I lead by, not even by example. It's like yes by example, but I more lead by knowledge, you know? Because half the time I'm spazzing out, but I'm also I know what I'm doing, you know? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would explain it more.
Well, I just feel like a lot of the times I can be goofy, but also everyone knows that I'm a reputable source for if something goes awry, then I fix it. But I don't feel like I necessarily hold that much authority or am that commanding, even though my personality is pretty big.
That's fair. I totally see that. I feel like you're less of a teacher, more of a I have all of the knowledge and I'm a problem solver. And I feel like that is how I would describe your leadership.
Yeah. Well, would you say that you said I'm not a teacher, I'm a problem solver, but do you think that you're the opposite, or how would you explain yours?
I don't know actually where I would be, but I definitely don't think I'm the kind of person who's I have all the knowledge. Not at all. I think I'm more come to me and I'll help you find the knowledge, or I'll direct you to someone who can find the knowledge. But I am more of a guide, I would say.
Well, I think that's a difference. I think I'm a doer and you're a helper, and that's the main thing. If to put it into perspective, the way that we both react to something, I feel like if somebody came to me with a problem, I would fix it, whereas you would help them to fix it. Maybe
fair.
Not even do it directly yourself, but lead them
I
down
would
the
give
right
them.
path.
I would advise them on how to fix this. I would talk it through with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the difference. I think if someone comes to you with a problem, you're just gonna fix it. If they come to me with a problem, I'm gonna talk it through with them so that we can fix it, and we can come up with a solution.
And I guess that really sparked the whole idea for talking about communication, at least in my mind, because it's at the point where there's too many problems and being a doer doesn't help because I can't do it all. And last year I feel like I did so much and now I'm burnt out.
And that's something that's actually if you're interested in finding out more about last year, go listen to our last podcast, because Jackson expands on this idea more, and this idea that he is very much a doer and yeah.
Well, I guess I want to talk about more specific problems and ask for your advice, just because I feel like you know when to take your hands off the wheel and I don't, and I just go down.
Yeah,
And
this is
I
so
used to
true.
I used to find like I don't know, like valor in that, but now it's like
Well, it's not working.
I'm tired of this. I'm exhausted. No, I guess like your staff is so much bigger than mine, and yet I feel like you manage it so much better. And I was thinking today that in terms of communication, like you and Marta, who's the other editor-in-chief of the Messenger, have established really good systems because you're systems thinkers, and
Because what?
and you're like system thinkers. Like you're able to say like,
oh, this is a system.
like here's a document that we're going to work off of,
Yeah.
and it establishes deadlines or what's going to go in
That's
print
true.
or what's not. Whereas like I'm running into problems with people. First of all, there not being deadlines because I can't manage all of them, and two, there not being like a place for that to go. And it's because I've tried to establish those in the past with Sean, who's the other producer, and I said today when we were talking through some things, I said we're not systems thinker. Like we've tried in the past multiple times to establish places for people to follow deadlines, and we just can't keep up with it because we're not like that.
And I think okay, well, there's two things I want to say to that. One is, I think that all of that is not on you. Like, we have to, it always comes back to the fact that the Messenger was established first. So there's more, like, it's just, it's been, like, the system certain systems have been in place for so many years, and, like, people are, like, joining a production team, and they're not making up, like, they are the team, but they're also joining something. They're joining, like, a legacy.
Like
they're
an
joining
establishment.
an establishment, which is different because with you, your team is the establishment. So I think, like, that definitely adds certain difficulties for you that I don't have to, like, deal with, and I think it makes it easier for staff to, like, follow systems, you know? But I also think that there's no, I understand what you mean by system thinker. Like, yeah, Marta and I think very, like, okay, we're going to put this in place and we're going to keep track of this because we, like, or she is very organized. I'm trying to be more organized, trying to be more like her. But I think that as a leader, like, you need to be organized. Like, I get that, like, you naturally don't like to long-term plan, or you naturally don't like to, like, do housekeeping type things. Yeah. But, like, at this point, you just have to, and, like, I think it'll make you feel better. I think you're going to feel less cluttered. Like, and even if you are not the kind of person who wants to always have a Google Doc open, like, just grab a notebook. Like, that's what Marta and I did.
Yeah, I had that notepad for a while.
Yeah, and I think, or use the whiteboard, because, like, you can, if you're not naturally a system thinker, you just have to become one now. Or you have to use systems regardless, you know?
Yeah. I actually don't feel like I'm cluttered. Because my staff is smaller. What I do feel like is that last year we did episodes, and we are not doing episodes this year. We're just doing single stories, because it was too much work and it wasn't really valuable for any part of our production to continue doing that. But I don't feel cluttered. I feel like I have a good sense of what's going on. I just feel like, one, I follow each week we try to publish one video at least, right? And I feel like I know where everything is, and I just, like, I come in and I'm like, oh, this is the video we're publishing this week, so I'm going to focus on this person. And every day I make the rounds and ask people where they are, but I don't, like, stick around unless they're like, hey, Jackson, come here, and then I do help them out. But I'm not working with them as closely because they're not, like, the main priority. Whereas, like, with you guys, stuff is constantly being put out, and you always come out with a product every month, which is the paper. I don't know. I sometimes it's like whack-a-mole, you know, where it's like Messenger is very smooth, and here's a problem. I'm gonna smack it down. Another problem rises up in another place, and it's tough. And I don't know. I feel like you're right that I do have, like, resources laying around in physical ways, but I just don't know how to use them or how to follow along.
I think so. Something you said that stuck out to me was like, you won't, like, if someone calls you over to solve a problem, then you'll solve it. But I think the reason that you need systems is to prevent the problems. So, like, when you check in with people, like, I think the value of having something where you're writing stuff down is because it adds pressure. Like, people, if I have a checklist in my hand and I, like, walk by to someone and I'm like, hey, so what are you so I see you're working on this, like, give me a status
because they know that you're following.
Because they know that I'm writing something down and I'm not just checking in, and I'm not going to forget the next day.
Yeah.
You know, I have physical evidence of their progress. And so even if it's not for decluttering your mind because you know what's up, it's for adding a sense of, like, responsibility and accountability because they know that there's physical evidence of their progress.
Yeah, and I think because we're doing so much establishing that we haven't, like, as a class, even from, like, a completely scholastic perspective in terms of, like, grading and whatnot, like, we still haven't found that. Like, we still changed that a couple times, the way that grades are working, and that's where I feel like a lot of the authority lies, is like, I don't, and neither do you or any of the other editors, but, like, we don't have the authority to grade. But whereas with your system, like with the checklist, that they know that can be directly reported back. And so when things don't turn out, when they don't get finished, there's something that has been followed for a long while, and you can look back and say, oh, well, this person wasn't really doing what they needed to do. I feel like we just have so many changes all the time that maybe that is like a scramble, and that's why it's tougher to do things like that.
But I also think, like, long term, like, at least in newspaper, we always say that, like, grades are secondary. Like, when the grades will come if you are a good, productive member of the staff. And, like, I think more than people being like, oh, well, even if I don't do whatever, like, she can't affect my grade.
Yeah.
I think the fact is, like, people know that, okay, they won't receive as much recognition. They won't be given as much opportunity, be, like, encouraged to write the more, like, hard-hitting stories. Like, your experience in the class is up to you and the editors. So I think, like, that still adds a sense. I see what you're saying with the grades, but I also feel like with newspaper, I don't know if that is a motivating factor.
Yeah. Well, it is also different because, and I've talked about this in past podcasts, but I am in both classes, so I see you lead, but you don't see me lead. Grades are secondary in newspaper class. That's how I feel about both of them, but not all of my staff members on MHSNews feel the same, and that's rough, because also communication as a motivator, I lack at that. I feel like I'm a whip cracker, and not like a yay. Yay.
Oh, that's very true.
And
I feel like I think it's difficult for you to, like, I wouldn't say difficult, but you don't easily give praise.
Yeah.
Which is, like, not necessarily a bad thing, but I think when you're a leader, you need to be able to recognize the small things and the small feats, and call and be like, yes, amazing, you just typed that one beautiful sentence. That is great. Because, like, you know what? Then now they're going to type 10 more beautiful sentences.
I have been working on that, because I have been having to do a lot of critiquing. I mean, that's part of my job, of critiquing their work. But, like, I have been trying, and, like, when I do critique their stuff, I go through and, like, I write out a list of stuff that needs to be worked on, but I also, like, do throw in things that genuinely impress me, but I feel like it's overlooked because of my personality. Like, they know that I'm hard hitting a lot of the time, so it's like they don't know when to separate constructive from, like, me just being a tool.
Wait, do you give them written feedback? Is that what you're saying? Are your critiques written? Like,
no, I'll sit down with a pad of paper.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, written, but, like, it's not, like, a comprehensive...
Well, I think that's something that... I think you need to try doing more vocal feedback.
No, I do. I sit with them. But the written
good.
stuff is,
it's
like...
for their notes.
For that, so they come in, like, they come into this office, and I sit down and I watch their thing, and I'm like...
nice.
Yeah, we talk through it, and then I write it all down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a scrap of paper, so, like, that gets tossed, but...
I feel like that's one thing that is difficult, though, in achieving a newspaper, is, like, one-to-one communication.
Yeah.
Just because everyone is always listening. Because it's a small room, and there's so many people, and it's just, like, it's, like, hard to catch, and there's always people in the offices. And so,
you're
like,
pretty
it's
loud.
It's hard to...
Your whole face is a mouth.
I don't... Okay, but moving on. Very cool. Moving on. It's hard.
Very cool.
It's hard to get that, like, just us, like, me and someone else are gonna just talk about something and nobody else is gonna listen. Like, there's always people listening, and I think that is a challenge.
Yeah, I don't think I struggle with that one too much. I think everyone in MHS News is shamelessly themselves and is not afraid to have an unabashedly vocal conversation.
Well, I mean, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, it's so easy to recognize people and encourage people and give positive feedback when there's in front of a large room of people, but when there is constructive criticism that needs to be given, it's difficult, and it's not... I don't want to give it, like, I don't want to give it in front of the whole room. And so, like, it's hard to find that, like, that privacy while also not singling them out and being like, hey, let's go out in the hallway. Because that makes it not casual, and that makes it seem like it's a big deal. But sometimes a constructive criticism is not a big deal, but you still don't want everyone to be listening.
So then how do you do it?
Exactly. How do I do it? Well, usually it's just, like, I will just pull up a chair to them, and then we'll just, like, talk about it. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, it definitely alters the way that I communicate, because I have to keep in mind that everybody is listening, you know?
Yeah.
I think I don't know.
Well, how would you communicate otherwise? Because you rarely communicate in any other way that isn't, like, nice. Like, and that's
no, that's fair. That's true.
Whereas, like, and I'll just say, like, I'm a jerk, but, like, I'm a jerk, but I'm also constructive, and I also, like, there is times where I pull through, whereas I feel like you, for the whole 100%, are just, like, a kind person, and, oh, well, you did really great on this, but if we worked on this...
Okay,
and I'm not mocking you, I'm just saying, like, this is what I witness.
I think that I would say that overall, I definitely am kind, and I'm empathetic and understanding, and I think I don't know how those interactions would be different if my class was smaller and there was more opportunities to have private conversations with people. I definitely think it would be different, but I don't know. I don't know how different it would be.
Let me ask you this. I feel like because I deal with 10 people that I know more of their personal lives than you know about everyone in newspapers' personal lives.
For sure.
And I feel like, or in their personalities as well. And I feel like that, to me, is like a very... That's something that I take into consideration way more than you do. And maybe I shouldn't.
Like when
it's a very...
communicating?
Yeah, it's very like an ad hominem way of approaching things.
I would say that, like, it's definitely an advantage when you know people's personalities and you can communicate with
But
them
is it though? Because I feel like it drives me awry.
But I guess my thought is I think I know people's personality enough to, at least once you've been on staff with them for more than a semester, to know an effective way to communicate with them. Like, I don't think you need to know much about someone's personal life to be able to be like, this is the best way you're going to respond to my feedback. Like, I think I can figure that out by just, like, observing their work ethic and just, like, talking to them the way, like, how, to the extent that I do, and working with them to the extent that I do, over, like, the course of a semester or, like, a year. Because, yeah. But I think in terms of, like, because you said, like, is it really an advantage, though? I think that it is, because, like, I think it leads to more, I think people will take your feedback as more, like, they'll be like, okay, like, this person who's giving me feedback, like, actually knows me well, and I think they're gonna, like, appreciate your feedback more, you know? Like, so I don't know I don't know if you would be able to, I don't know. You know? I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're going for. I don't feel bad. I hope they feel like that, at least sometimes, because I do try to look out for them. I think another thing to add in on that, like, people's personality is, I feel like everyone on newspaper, like, you have a similar personality to them. You know what we should talk about?
What?
My fixation on type A versus type B.
Okay, yeah, did you do some research on it?
I did.
Okay, explain it.
Okay, well, type A are people who are, like, very driven, as opposed to being, like, passive people. And that doesn't mean that, like, type B people are lazy or anything. But it just means that you like to talk about that, what is that thing? Share space, take space, what is that?
Oh, make space, take space.
It's like the amount of social space a person is taking up in a room. So all of the time, I'm just like,
I hate that. Can you cut that out?
and you're like, no, I'm not cutting that out. But you're like, yep. So I'm type A, and I feel like everyone in newspaper is type B. And I think everyone in MHS News is type A too. So that's just like me, a stubborn person in newspapers, me, a stubborn person surrounded by people who all have the same mindset, and they're not. Like,
okay, that is such a big generalization.
I'm gonna generalize.
I'm gonna generalize. That's true.
I'm like, I have one opinion, and then everyone disagrees with me, and that's fine. But I'm just like, nobody likes my opinion. And then meanwhile,
that's not about type A, type B. That's just your opinion not being well liked.
No, but in MHS News, everyone is type A, but we all have different opinions still.
Okay,
so it's
but no. I just think I don't know if that's fair. I think that if you put, okay.
Oh, I'm a generalizer.
Newspaper has way more I think it comes back to the number of people. Like, if it was you, me, Marta, and Kaylin in Monsi in a classroom, okay? Just us. Yeah. Obviously, all of us are going to be take up a lot of space and be very, like...
No, you wouldn't.
What you're claiming
you
type
literally,
A.
You wouldn't.
Yes, it would.
You would not. You would be so quiet, and then you would put me in my place. You would take that. I would take up all the space, and then y'all would be like,
Okay, so, but don't you believe that, like, there's only a certain amount of space in a room that can be taken? Think about this mathematically. If there's 10 people,
she busting out the
if there's 10 people in the class, it's going to be divided by 10. If you have, like, 30 people in a class, it's going to be smaller proportions of space that are able to...
This is a writing class.
I don't know how to explain this to you. I just think that...
Remember last time we started this
you're oversimplifying it.
Remember last time we started this podcast and you were doing your math homework while we were trying to...
I was not!
Make some art.
This is slander.
I think we're on a tangent.
I think we are too, and I also feel like this podcast isn't really about communication anymore, and I just think it's going to be too long.
I feel like we have to continue to revisit it, because communication is more than, like, the words that we use. It's also about, like, the people that we are. So... Oh, you're going to have to cut that. Cursing on the podcast.
Sorry, you're going to have to cut that out.
I'm not cutting it out. I'm just going to bleep you.
No, don't do that.
You heard it here first.
Don't do that.
The leader of the newspaper.
Please
a
don't
respected
do that.
School student.
I hate you. I hate this.
A national merit finalist. Just cursed on a school publication.
Can you please
cut
it out?
And with that, thank you so much for listening.
This is not the end.
I'm so excited for this to continue all year, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
This can't be the